Hello, and welcome to CDO Magazine interview series. My name is Channie Mize, and I'm the general manager for Slalom here in the Ohio Valley. And I am so excited today to be interviewing Maddie Bell. And so, Maddie, I was hoping that you could, spend just a couple minutes just introducing yourself and your amazing organization that you've built, Scheduler AI.
Yeah. Hey, everyone. Thank you so much. So my name is Maddie Bell. I am the co-founder of Scheduler AI. We're actually a Cincinnati-based startup. And we like to make the joke, we became entrepreneurs by accident. My co-founder and I actually spent over a decade working at some of the country's biggest companies, never intended to find ourselves in this place, but we came across what we thought was a real problem that we set out to solve. And the rest is kind of history. I'm sure we'll dig in. But what we do at Scheduler AI is we actually help businesses instantly book meetings with their customers and clients so that they can fuel their business growth. Obviously, Scheduler AI, we can schedule a lot of meetings, but what we found is when it comes to really creating AI that helps people grow, we really want to focus on the meetings that are those core growth drivers. So we build custom AI agents to help businesses manage them.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. And I love that another homegrown company that we're getting the chance to speak to. And I love getting the chance to speak to a founder. So Maddie, you and I had a great opportunity to engage not long ago and had just a really wonderful conversation about AI. I wonder if you could tell folks a little bit more about what do you think people actually want from AI, generative AI? Because I think there's something that people are saying they want versus what they really want. And so maybe tell me a little bit more about that so our audience can hear it.
Well, I think anyone who's listening to this probably knows, right? Automation is not actually new, and some people would argue that AI is not that new. Um, so we see people across the spectrum in terms of how we're dealing with this. What is new is that technology that was often seen in certain areas but not others became mainstream very, very, very fast. So, for example, we've been working on our technology for multiple years before the launch of OpenAI and GPT. And the different conversations and barriers we've had with customers has obviously dramatically changed since then. So I think what people want from like Gen AI and AI really depends on their come from state.
Mm,
Because some people are finding out about this for the first time, and some people are like, seriously? We've literally, yeah, got it. So that's kind of been an interesting journey, right? And the world is almost going on that journey at the exact same time, right? So you see people in organizations that know they need to be getting involved in this, but they're really not sure where. Again, you see people that already have systems and processes in place and they're trying to figure out how to augment them. And then you see folks kind of like us who are like, okay, what does this new technology in terms of general AI and large language models mean for the future of work and how people collaborate, and how can we push that to new levels and places maybe that people haven't seen before?
yeah.
So that's definitely one thing is what do people want? Well, it depends on their come from state. And
Yeah.
then what I think is really interesting about, let's call it Gen AI, but let's call it mass adoption AI,
Mm,
AI that we're now telling entire companies that we want to be using to create competitive advantage. What's interesting about this is I think it breaks down some silos that only AI can break down. And I'll take that a step further. A lot of times in big companies, we talk about, and this is kind of an old adage. There was this joke of people who sit on the carpet and people who sit on like the tile, right?
mhm.
And it's this idea that you would have this commercial group, the idea people, the ones on the customer facing side on the carpet, right? But you would have this technical group, this R&D group or this digital group really focused on building the machine that brought the ideas to life. And those things were separated by functions, by roles, because a lot of times you had a commercial person say, hey, this is what the business challenge is. This is what we need to go solve. And then you had the technical team to say, great, we'll go implement that.
Mhm.
What's really, really interesting about AI is that it requires an extremely unique and new partnership between the commercial strategy and side of the house and the technical side of the house for how does this
Mhm.
actually get done. And I think it's really causing some interesting changes as those groups who maybe haven't interacted as directly are now forced to collaborate in new and different ways.
Wow, there's so much goodness in everything you just said there. And so I want to distill it down into some parts because this is good stuff. So the first thing I love what you talked about is a little bit of that hype cycle. So we've had AI since, the 1960s. We've had some form of artificial intelligence. Alan Turing back in 1942 was doing things with AI, right? But yet it didn't hit the public awareness really until 2023 when ChatGPT became a thing that everyone was aware of. It's not to say it didn't exist before, it's just that people suddenly became aware of it because of OpenAI and the democratization of it. And so now we get this buzz. And so everyone's buzzy about it. All these boards are saying, go figure out how to use it. People are like, I don't know what the heck to do with it. Right. And so I love what you were saying there about that explosion of awareness. Can you do any double click on that explosion of awareness and kind of what you've seen? Because you were already on the AI front before ChatGPT came out. So, kind of what's been your experience with that hype?
Yeah, I mean, no question there's hype around AI right now. To some people, it's old. To some people, it's brand new. I think what we have to consider is that it has finally reached a state of mass awareness and
Mm-hmm.
that businesses recognize, and rightly so, that they need to capitalize on both the awareness of the tech as well as its new capabilities in order to get a competitive advantage. But what
Right.
we're seeing that's really interesting within enterprises is that the proper application of this type of tech, or at least the application that we see businesses using to get immediate results, requires a unique collaboration between commercial functions and technical functions that in the past wasn't there as much.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been really interesting from my end to get to work with organizations, right, who want to take this technology, get a transformative business result, but also drive immediate adoption needed to actually get that business result within an organization that wasn't necessarily set up this way.
Right. Yeah. No, I think you're right on that. And so now we're in the year of 2024, obviously. We're in the year of experimentation. Everyone's dabbling in AI, right? Everyone's suddenly an experimenter. Gartner says that by 2025 things will start scaling. And then hopefully by 2028, well, AI, generative AI will be ubiquitous in most of our platforms and technologies, which I think is probably right. I mean, if, based on what we're seeing kind of out there generally. Um, I love what you're saying about finding a use case and then getting the business adoption around it. And I love how you're using generative AI as kind of the dot connector that's bringing those together. I wonder if you could do a double click on that dot connecting piece of generative AI and how it's forcing, disparate parts of the team to come together and work together on things.
It's interesting. We talk a lot about the evolution that we're seeing with AI and again, mass scale AI.
Mm.
And the first stage of this was really the kind of the meteor hits the earth, right? Everybody's like, "Oh my gosh, what is this thing?" And there's this one platform that got everybody's attention, right?
Mhm.
OpenAI GPT.
Mhm.
That was call it phase 1. And that was a very me to a chatbot, almost like linear relationship. Phase 2, what we saw was that all of these different technologies were starting to bring in and integrate that technology into platforms that already existed. We call that the integrated phase, right? I'm going to take what's there and I'm going to amp it up, right? On LinkedIn, you have Gen AI, and your Google Docs, you have Gen AI. And I think to some degree, the way in which we use current platforms will, of course, change
Mhm.
as the, integrated, just spreads. What I find to be really interesting is at fast speed, we are moving into the third phase,
Mm.
which is the phase of agentive AI.
Mm.
And that phase is where you're able to now you don't just have one chatbot. Now you don't just have the technology and all these software platforms. Now you're able to use that intelligent automation to achieve specific business workflows,
Mm.
to actually transcend these platforms that we use every day. and to mirror how humans move from those different platforms.
Mm-hmm.
And what's really interesting about a world of agentive AI is what we're already starting to see happen is that you're starting to look at this technology less as quote unquote a tool
Mm-hmm.
and more of a part of your team.
Mm-hmm.
And when you start to think about it as part of your team, there are probably a lot of mannerisms and thought processes that would come to mind, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is this person new to my business? How do I treat people that are new to my business? What specific capabilities does this person have, and where do they best fit within the organization, right? We're not taking new hires and putting them in front of CEOs,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Right.
so, where we've seen people super successful is to start to say, hey, if I'm going to manage a team, I want to make sure everybody in the boat is rowing at their optimal pace in their optimal position.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we see working, right? Is we're able to say, okay, look, here are the human problems that people we are going to have people on, and here's why.
Mm-hmm.
Here are these other problems that we are now going to automate in ways that maybe we haven't before. And I've talked to a few folks about how to identify that and diagnose that. And it's actually, again, a little bit different than I think people are commonly thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Because I see a lot of organizations inspired by the possibility of AI.
Right.
Like,
Right.
we can go to the moon. Yes, like the world is going to change. Billion-dollar companies are going to be founded by potentially one person, like huge expectations. But when we say, okay, so what problems do I go solve? What's really interesting is you actually have to reset your expectations about how problems can get solved.
Mm-hmm.
So, when we talk to businesses about the types of problems across their enterprise, across their corporation that they need to be looking at in order to get a macro impact, like the big force multiplier impact of AI, a lot of times we see them saying, okay, what are our three top problems? That's one route. The second route is, no, I need my humans on my three top problems. But really, it's all these low value tasks that I want to eliminate. That feels good. The problem is low value tasks should not be automated. They should be fully eliminated from the organization. What they mean in that second space is actually, I now have a new tool to automate micro tasks that are fundamentally critical and that have a macro impact when done at scale with speed. And it's funny because I think there's no better example of that than the one I live with every day. So the reason we chose scheduling, right? A lot of people see it as, well, yeah, like we have meetings, are you free at 2? But if you think about that for one more second, you'll start to realize that meetings are actually the blueprint of
Mm-hmm.
how businesses grow.
Mm-hmm.
They define the who, the what, and the when of how almost every workflow in an organization happens.
Mm-hmm.
And many, many, many meetings are not in any way low value. If you are a business in B2B, your meetings are literally the growth driver. They are the single most important set of meetings in your entire company. If
Mm-hmm.
you are recruiting talent, those meetings will define the people that you put in the seats in your organization. But in our brains, we're just like, I got to schedule a meeting. I got to CC some people. I need to take the notes. I need to, right? And I think the reason is because they are written with micro tasks that have a macro impact at scale.
Yes.
And that is where AI has a very unique role to play a massive force multiplier for organizations that are able to come in and say, okay, let's rethink, you know, how this looks. The only thing I'll add though, because in each of the things I talk about, I want to kind of go the why. So why don't we see these micro tasks
Mm-hmm.
as clearly? It's because 90% of them are on autopilot.
Mm-hmm.
When you think about how the human brain literally works, these things that we have to do, if they're repetitive enough, our brain stops processing them almost entirely.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean we're not wasting time on them. It doesn't mean they're not important. It just means that we've developed compensative behaviors and we've developed processes that maybe are suboptimal, but we don't even think about. And so that's why a lot of what we talk about, when we go into organizations is we do need to change our expectations about how work gets done because so much of the critical work is being done on autopilot. And if we can unwind that and add automation to it, we can create massive impact.
Well, Maddie, always amazing pleasure to have a chance to connect with you. And thanks for being so authentic and sharing so much about your journey. I love hearing it and I love your thoughts on AI. I really think you're nailing it. So, viewers, thank you so much for joining Maddie Bell and I today. Please visit cdomagazine.tech for additional interviews. Thank you so much.